In this example, we will write a Java program to read student ID and a quiz mark from a file named student.txt. The file includes data for 30 students as comma separated file, and then our program should output on screen the average of a quiz mark and then the student ID with a quiz mark below average. So we will have a student.txt. This is a text file. In each line we have a student ID, comma, and then the quiz mark. And we will have 30 students. So in this file, we know the number of lines. So we can have a for loop from I equals 0, I less than 30. Or we can also use the idea we used before, which is has next line. The output, we will do it on output screen. So there is no file for output. The first thing we will do the output is the average. So here we have to take 10 plus 8.5 plus 3.5 for all students. We calculate the average and then we do the output of the average. Once we know the average, then we have to go and we have to find which student is having a quiz mark below average, which means I have to go and check this student and the quiz mark. This is not below average. The second one is not below average. The third one, he's below average, so I have to output his ID, and that's why we have to output the ID over there. So here we have to go each line, and then we have to save the ID, and also we have to save a quiz mark. And because we have 30 students, it means I have to use an array. I will use an array for a student ID, and I will use another ID for a student mark. So we will do the example as follow. First of all, we will use a try and we will close a try, and then we should have catch at the end, IO exception, and we will output the error message. We are reading from a file, so I have to use a scanner. I will call it input equal a new scanner, a new file, student.txt. So I have, this is my input object, and this is the object of this student.txt. And we will assume we have the following values 11, 10. So student ID is 11 and the value 10, which means a quiz. And similarly for the other lines. As we agreed, I need to save the ID and I need to save the quiz in array. So I need two arrays, one for ID and one for a quiz. For the ID, I have to use long bracket ID equal a new long between a bracket 30. So what does it mean? We are creating an array ID and it will be of 30 students. I will need another array quiz, so I will say double bracket quiz equal a new double 30. So it means I have an array quiz and it will have 30 students. So here, if I say, for example, in location 0, I have a student 11, and then in location 0 of a quiz, I have a quiz 3.5. It means student 11, he got a 3.5. If we go to location 1, and I have a student 12, and for example, the quiz is 8.5, it means student 12, he got in the quiz 8.5. So this is the meaning of two arrays, one for ID and one for a quiz. Now let's continue with our program, because we need to calculate the average. So as usual, we need summation at the beginning, and the summation should have the initial value as 0. So we have here summation as 0. Now I need to go for each line in my array, and because now I know how many lines I have, so I can simply use a for loop. For I equals 0, I less than 30. So I will start from 0 till the end. And this is a good idea in this example because I need to save them in array. So I will use I as an index. Now once you have your first I as 0, so we have I at location 0, we will do the usual thing, which means I have to get the line, and then I have to break it into an array, and then I have to save it in the array ID, and then we will have to save it in the quiz. So it will work like this. When I say string line equal input.next line, so we will get the first line and I will save it in a variable, and the variable is called line. So we will have between double quotation 11, comma 10. The first number is representing ID, the second number representing the quiz. And then we will just mention create an array by splitting the line by using the comma. So we will create an array and we will have two elements, location 0, location 1. And location 0 will have the first number 11 and the second one we will have 10, but still they are string. Now the second thing I have to do is I have to save them in the array. So I have to take 11 and I have to save it in the first location, and we have to take 10 and we have to save it in the first location of the quiz. So we have to save them in location 0, which is the value of I. And that's why here we say ID at location I equals at location I. So ID will equal the element at location 0, but I have to do, sorry, here we have to say long, not double. So double should be for the quiz. So for the array, we say long.parse long. It will take the element at location 0. It will save it in ID. For the quiz, we will just convert it to double and we'll save it in the quiz. So we save the first number. So we have here the first ID is 11 and we have the first quiz as 10. And because we need at the end to calculate the average, so I have to also do the summation, which says go to summation, and you should have it plus equal the element you have it at location I, the first quiz you recorded, and that's why we will say 10 plus 0, which will be as 10. And here will be the end of your loop, so this is the end of the loop. Now I have to go and I have to get the second student. I have to save it in my array, and similarly I will have to do the same job. So again we will go to the beginning of the loop and we will do the same thing. I will get the line, I will break it into an array, and then I will take the first element at location 0 of the array, save it in the array ID, take the second element at location 1, save it in a quiz, and just add it to the summation. So when we do it together, it means now I will take the second one, which is a 12 and 8.5. So here the line will have the following value. We'll have a 12 and 8.5. And then break it into an array. So I will have a 12 and location 0, 8.5, which is the quiz at location 1. And then I will go to index I. Because we went to a new iteration, it means now the value of I is 1. So I have to go and convert the 12 to a long value, and I have to save it in location 1. So in location 1 I will have a 12. Similarly, I will convert 8.5 into double value, and I will save it at location 1 because this is I. So we will take it there and we'll save it in location 1, and here we will have 8.5. So the value of I, it's more like the index. So here the first line will be index 0, index 1, index 2, till you finish the elements in your array. And that's why it's recommended here to use a for loop instead of using while input has next line, because you can use I as an index. And by this, of course, you will do the summation as well. So 10 plus 8.5, it will be 18.5. And by this, you did the reading of the second student. And then again, you will go back, you will increment I. So I now will have the value 2, which means you will read this line, take it as a line, convert it as an array, and then save it in its location. Once you are done with this, it means you are you have did the reading of all of the lines you have in your file, and you have the summation. Then now you have to do the calculation of the average. So once you finish your loop, you have to go and calculate the average. Calculating the average, we have to say sum over 30. So just to take it and save it there. So let's assume, for example, we have the sum as, let's say, 7.4. We have the average as 7.4. Now, as an output, I need to output on screen the average. So that's why we say system.out.println average equal, and then we will just say student below average, because if we go back to the example, I have to do the following. I have to say the average, the value of the average, and then I have to display a message student below average, and then I have to go for the student, and whatever student is having a value below average, then I have to display the ID. So here, because I have to go for each quiz and I have to check if it is below average or not, it means I have to go to the array quiz and I have to go for the elements we have. If I find an element that is below average, I have to display the ID of that student. So here, if I'll just say here 13 and a 3.5, just the example we have. Now we will just start the loop for I equal 0, I less than 30, if a quiz of I is less than the average. So the first time, go for each quiz and double check if it is below the average or not. So 10, is it below the average? It's not. 8.5, it's not below the average. 3.5 is below the average. So now I have to do the output, but I will not do the output of a quiz at location 2, which is a 3.5. I have to display the student ID, which is 13, which means I found quiz at location 2, 3.5, so I have to output ID at location 2. And that's why here we have to say ID at location I, because this is a corresponding element. And similarly, you will go till the end of the array. Once you finish, then you have to say input.close, because you need to close your input file. And of course, you have the end of a try, and also you have the close, the exception. So if the file is not there, it cannot be opened for any reason, then the exception will be just taken within the catch block. So in this example, we did the following. We have to read from a file, so I have to say scanner, a new file, and then I have to mention the file name. Because in this example, I need to save the ID and I need to save the quizzes, so I need to create arrays. And because they mentioned that I have 30 students, that's why we created an array for ID. We know ID is always long, so I have to say long bracket ID equal a new long and then between a bracket 30. I need also to save the quizzes. That's why I have to say double bracket quiz, because I know quiz always of type double, a new double equal 30. And by this I mean the element at location 0, the ID at location 0 will have the quiz at location 0. So student 11 will have a quiz 10. Student 12 will have a quiz 8.5. So location 0 and ID will be having the quiz at location 0 of a quiz. And then I have to go for each element in my file, take it and convert it. So as usual, we just have to say, get me the line, break it into an array, and then we have to take the long and we have to take to the double. The small difference here between this exercise and others, we are not saving them in variables, we are saving them in array. That's why I have to say the name of the array location I, the name of the array location I, and here we said that's why it's better to use the for loop. And then the rest of the program is more similar to exercise number 1 we did in chapter 1 of arrays, because you have to calculate the average, you have to go for each element in the array. If it is below the average, you have to do the output. And at the end, you have to do the close and close of try.